My name is Tanya Suarez, and as your leadership communication coach, I'm here to help you lead in English with authority and authenticity. Let's actually practice some phrases that you can use this week in your meeting. As you know, one of the biggest challenges in meetings is keeping people on track. So let's practice using this phrase that will help you bring the focus. Repeat after me. Let me bring this back to. Now let's look at the example. Now that we've covered the market data, let me bring this back to how it impacts our Q3 hiring plan. It's really important that you practice out loud. Not only is fluency very physical, pronunciation is muscular, but you also need to work on your intonation. This is what's going to help you actually sound diplomatic. This is where a lot of my clients feel that if they have the perfect English, then they'll always be perceived as professional. But it's not actually the English structure, it's the intonation. So practice this again. Now that we've covered the market data, let me bring this back to how it impacts our Q3 hiring plan. Notice how I almost get a little bit higher pitch as well. Let me bring this back. And you want to slow down a little bit. Remember, everyone's distracted at this point. You've got to give them that verbal cue that we're going to change gears. Let me bring this back to how it impacts our Q3 hiring plan. On the flip side, maybe people aren't distracted or off topic. Maybe they're staying on a topic too long. And so this phrase is going to help you move on in a way that's respectful and diplomatic. Repeat after me. Moving from X to Y, we see that. So notice the power of pausing. Notice how I'm not rushing through it. I'm not saying this slowly because I'm teaching you as a non-native speaker. I'm doing this intentionally because, again, people need that verbal cue that you're the authority figure and that you're bringing them back. You're getting their attention. So oftentimes, slowing down a little bit can increase engagement. Let's take a look at the example. Moving from our customer feedback to our product roadmap, we see that prioritizing usability will accelerate adoption. Take your time. So many of my clients think that if you speak faster, you sound more fluent. Unfortunately, it has the opposite effect. People are going to get more confused because they can't understand you. It could be an accent issue or a speed issue. They're going to look confused and say, huh, or what did you say? That's going to kill your confidence. You're going to get all in your head. So take your time and don't speak slowly. What I actually want you to do, because if you tell yourself speak slower, it's going to it has a weird effect on people. It always ends up feeling disingenuous. Instead, I just want you to open your mouth more. It has the same effect, but it increases the likelihood that your pronunciation is going to be clearer. So just open your mouth more. And when you're practicing, exaggerate it. It should feel weird, but that way, when you're in the moment, the adrenaline's going, your heart's racing, the speed evens out with the openness. So let's try again. Moving from our customer feedback to our product roadmap, we see that prioritizing usability will accelerate adoption. Here's a pronunciation tip. Notice that the S in usability actually sounds like a Z. There's a slight vibration. So if you're working on refining your accent, these are small moments that have a pretty big impact. Being a leader does not mean knowing everything. Being a leader means knowing what you don't know and helping facilitate conversations that lead to solutions. So this question is great for that. Repeat after me. So what does this mean for us? Let's take a look at the example. Our revenue growth is up 12%. So what does this mean for our expansion strategy? This is really powerful. A lot of times, because of the language issue, and what I mean by issue in this case is the language insecurity, I find that sometimes leaders who are non-native English speakers will overcompensate. You almost feel like you don't have permission to ask questions because you have to prove yourself more than your native speaking counterparts. And that's just not true. Or you might also come from a culture where asking questions and having that more collaborative process isn't the best form. But in American companies or multinational companies where American English is the preferred style, asking questions, being curious, having more collaborative approach is actually value add. So I really want you to get comfortable with posing questions and then pause, breathe. Don't try to answer the question immediately. Let other people participate. This is also great if you're working on refining your leadership style to be more inclusive and really take advantage of all the knowledge and expertise that your team has. You need to create a culture, create an environment where there are opportunities for them to contribute. To keep things moving, this phrase will really help. Repeat after me. Here's the question we need to answer next. Let's take a look at the example. We've agreed on the budget increase. Here's the question we need to answer next. How will we measure ROI? Now, this is really interesting because in addition to allowing you to facilitate a more collaborative approach, it also allows you to sound more natural. So I find that there are different experiences here. If you're coming from a culture that tends to value context and get to the point later, you might be saying too much. So as you can see here, this will help you have an idea of how to express this in a more concise form. Now, on the flip side, if you're from a culture that's super direct and bottom line, you might be too blunt, and that's going to be perceived as either aggressive or not very open. Being able to inject phrases like these will allow people to feel safe for contributing and take it more seriously that you're asking a question. Now, for the pronunciation tip, when we have things like ROI, CEO, please take your time with the pronunciation. It is really important. I can't tell you the amount of times that I've had people say CEO, but because they're rushing through the letters, it sounds like CO. And that's a completely different position. I know it's gonna feel like you're exaggerating the letters. You're not. It sounds great. So ROI, ROI. And our final phrase for today is a great way to finish meetings and presentations. In fact, this is one of the techniques that I teach the most. When you're finished a presentation or a meeting, don't finish with have a good day. Or if it's a presentation, like finished with just your contact information. Always finish with the main takeaway. This does require a little bit of prep, whether it's listening carefully throughout the meeting or preparing the day before. And what do you want the main takeaway to be? And so this will help you leave them with an actionable message. It'll help them remember, because remember, people are in meetings all day long. So you have to distill the information in a way that it increases retention. So let's practice the expression. Repeat after me. To wrap up this section, remember, and again, here you can do to wrap up this section when it's an agenda point. It could be to wrap up this meeting, but using the word remember, that's a lot more effective than you saying don't forget. So make sure you use the positive, remember, and it triggers you to, okay, this is main takeaway time. Let's take a look at the example. To wrap up this section, remember that clear, concise messaging is what builds stakeholder trust. Don't just listen to this video. Don't just take notes. It's really important for you to practice using these expressions out loud because this is what's going to allow you to use these expressions when you need them. You've got to feel it. You have to breathe through it. Practice your posture. Practice decreasing anxiety. Make sure that you're reframing your negative thoughts that you might have during these meetings. So if you'd like in-depth training and one-on-one coaching, apply to my Leadership Communication Accelerator at tanyasuarez.com/leadership. Thank you so much. And remember, your English is good enough. Now you get to elevate your executive presence in English to be the leader you deserve to be.